Hey guys, happy holidays! I'm back. My voice is back for the most part, and we are officially in December now, which means that the Christmas season is in full swing. And I don't know about you, but Christmas or holiday coloring is some of my absolute favorite. So I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a Christmas holiday page and do an in-depth video on a portion of that page each week leading up to Christmas. So it'll all be the same page, but each week will be a small portion of that same page and something that I'll be kind of taking my time with, kind of really digging in each week to show you guys what I'm doing step by step, no rushing. And then it'll continue next week with another portion of the page and so on until we're done. And I think I'm going to be uploading the last page on Christmas. So this will work out pretty good. It should be fun. Now to kick us off, we're bringing back an old, tried and true favorite of mine, the original Romantic Country coloring book. And we're going to start with this page. It's got an adorable Christmas tree, plenty of ornaments to color, and my favorite part of this whole page is this garland up here. This is what drew me to this page. So it's only natural that I always kind of start coloring first what drew me to this page in the first place. So we're going to be doing this garland today. Now, the first question that I want to ask is, what colors should I use here? Now, I'm a fairly predictable kind of traditionalist when it comes to Christmas colors. I adore that kind of red, green, gold combo, and this one is fairly straightforward. Like the green leaves, it was kind of the obvious choice, but I did kind of toy around with the idea of maybe coloring the leaves gold for just a little bit of a twist on the classic. But in the end, I did kind of stick to the kind of predictable, and I just kind of decided on a traditional color palette and placement. But who knows, maybe next time I'll be able to convince myself to kind of step outside of the box just a little bit more. By the way, I'm only using faber-castell colored pencils today, and I've only got the set of 60, so fairly limited color palette is what I'll be working with. Now for this gold ribbon, I used no less than 6 colors, maybe 7, I can't remember. But I like to pack in as much color variation with tone into a small area that will benefit from it, especially when you're trying to recreate a metallic like gold. You can't just use yellow and kind of hope for the best. By layering in a few of kind of the burnt orangey colors and browns, you'll be able to simulate a little bit of that golden hue. Especially when you start with a super, super light color like cream or white, which will kind of help to sell that little bit of a highlight that a lot of metallic tends to have. So if you start with that highlight and then kind of go darker from there, it's a little bit easier to simulate that look of a metallic color like gold. And that's what I'm doing now. I've laid down my foundational layers of cream and a few yellows, but now I'm going back in with burnt ochre, which is kind of that burnt kind of orangey color that I mentioned a moment ago. This is going to help me transition from those yellows to those slightly deeper browns that I'm going to be using next. Now to me, this burnt ochre is kind of the unsung hero of how I like to create my golds. It gets a little bit lost on its own in this, but when you layer it with those yellows and the browns, it just really ends up working very nicely. And as always, just a disclaimer, this is just how I like to color. Everything that I do on my coloring pages is just sort of my style. This is what I've come to like over the years, and I always like to think that there are 0 rules when it comes to your artwork. There's no right or wrong answers. If you do something a little bit different and you're getting a look that you love, you do you. And in the meantime, I'm going to do me. Now it's time to deepen our corners, and I'm going to concentrate some of these darker browns where the folds of our ribbon would be sort of shielded from the light source, which is, who the heck knows? You kind of have to make one up on a page like this that doesn't have one. Then I'll replicate this same technique onto other areas of the ribbon to give me that full range of golds, all the way from those super bright highlights down to the tarnished and brassy tones. And feel free to bust out the other unsung hero of the coloring world, a plain dry cotton swab, should you need it for a bit of blending. Ribbon done. Moving on to the garland leaves themselves, I'd like a few of them to read a bit brighter than the others. So I'm going to take my yellow and create just a bit of a highlight on just a few select leaves. And I'm just kind of choosing the ones that I think would sort of be hit by the most of that invisible light source. Then I'll switch to a bit more of an earthy green. First, kind of surrounding those areas of yellow, which will be a great transition color, where it kind of goes from that yellow to a bit of that darker green later on. Then I'll also take this same earthy green and use it to create a new highlight on the leaves that I haven't touched yet. Chromium green. Now this is going to act as my kind of my base color or my mid-tone. And I'll first go around to all of those leaves just kind of to surround that highlight that I just created, as well as give just a little bit of depth to the leaves that had a bit of yellow on them. So I'm kind of doing like two different things with this depending on the leaf. And then I'll finish up with this color by coloring in all the leaves that haven't gotten any love yet. All the ones that are still white will just kind of go in with this base color. So the chromium green will actually be the lightest color on those leaves. Everything from this point will be darker. And speaking of darker, I'm going to use pine green to just kind of touch in the corners and along some of the edges to create a little bit of shadow. And I really like these earthy greens. This is a huge staple of what I color with. And if you've been with PencilStash for a while, you'll definitely recognize this color scheme. And you won't find me using too much of like neon greens or too much like peacocky greens. These kind of earthy greens are definitely my style. And don't freak out, this is going to take you a little while, and that's okay. The more attention that you put into each and every leaf, the better off each one will be. Now, usually I go color by color, just like I'm doing here, but if I truly want to give love and attention to each and every leaf, I'll actually do them one at a time, kind of going through each color on one leaf before moving on to the next one. And it definitely gets tedious, but it can also pay off if you have the patience for it. Now, some browns. Now, I love brown to shade with. It's definitely my go-to. And I'm just going to place this down onto our garland in just a few different ways. One, I'm just going to kind of put it into some of those corners again, areas on the leaves where, themselves might be folded up a little bit. And then two, I'm also going to use it to shade kind of underneath the ribbon. So where kind of the bulk of that ribbon would be casting a shadow onto the leaves. This brown will just kind of help to sell that. And it's tempting to skip this step, especially when you've already put in, a number of, minutes, dozens of minutes into your greens. But it's actually one of my favorite steps for really making a piece look more realistic or more special. All right, let's bring her on home with these little circular ornaments, of which I'm going to color red. However, since ornaments have that fantastic kind of bright reflection on them, I'm going to start out by putting in a bit of a white circle on each with what else but my white pencil. When you go over with a color, that next color won't be able to kind of cover it completely. So the white and the new color will create something new, and you'll get a great little reflection spot. So I'm just going to be putting this down on each of the ornaments as a little bit of a placeholder. Then I'm simply going to use a few more reds to kind of ring around that highlight, kind of starting with a lighter color right around the red and then going to a deeper color and then finally doing just a little bit of a ring around the perimeter of each of those circles just to give a little bit of the illusion of depth. All right, my highlight turned out okay. It's not really what I was hoping for, so I'm going to try something a little bit different and see if that works. I'm going to take my white gel pen and I'm going to recreate what I originally did with my white pencil, which is just a little bit of a white highlight over kind of each of our little ornaments. And when that's dry, I'm going to go over the top of it with a little bit of kind of a light fleshy pink. And when you go over a white gel pen with a pencil, the texture is a little bit weird, to say the least. So I wouldn't recommend doing this over a larger area, but these small little spots are okay. And that's it. Our garland has been hung. Check back next week for the continuation of our Christmas page, where we tackle the tree. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. Until we meet again, happy coloring. Bye!